Hey guys, before we get started with today's PerfBytes episode, here's a word from our generous sponsor, Flood.io. Imagine your load test plan runs great with just 10 threads, but now you need 100,000 users. Distributed load testing seems like a good idea, right? But now you're wrestling with out-of-memory errors and blocked RMI ports, and your load generators outnumber the target servers for JMeter. You are throwing knives in the dark with limited feedback and Mandralic reporting. Say hello to Flood.io. Launch Flood Test using JMeter or Gatling, view and share test results in real time, scale out your own grid across the globe in minutes. Flood.io, distributed load testing for everyone.
Time for PerfBytes.
What the is PerfBytes?
The fourth square meal of the day.
Don't bookmark PerfBytes.
Waffles.
Microwave ready.
Blah blah blah. Blah blah
Add
blah.
nutritional value to your brain.
It's time for PerfBytes with your hosts Mark Tomlinson and James Pulley.
PerfBytes.
Whatever.
Well, Mark, here we are. It's the end of the year. And hey, it's time for PerfBytes. Season's greetings and Happy New Year to everybody out there in PerfBytes land. Again, of course, I got to admit this is a very exciting time of year for James and I because we get to think about everything that's happened throughout the year, but particularly because after the holiday load testing panic has settled down, usually we all get a nice break, right? People aren't going nuts and falling off the wall for Black Friday, except there were some crazy outages that happened after Black Friday.
Well, actually, Mark, and we had some second largest shopping day, which is traditionally Boxing Day in the UK and Australia.
And Canada.
And Canada.
Yes.
But not here in the United States.
Yeah, so
because we have learned that we do not box on the day after Christmas. Too much food in the stomach.
No, you could burst a spleen.
Yeah.
That would be bad. So anyway, speaking of tactically equipped people, James, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mark, all things considered.
Yes.
And
we're broadcasting from Williamsburg, Virginia. This is a halfway point between James and I, where we're usually not in the same room recording. So that may sound a little different for you out there, but that's because we're actually sitting in the same room having a recording session.
And believe it or not, we are in an area of Williamsburg that does have electricity.
They have electricity. But I think the internet is powered by oil. So, it's
okay.
Like a kerosene internet router.
Certainly the cell phone towers are, because we've got no signal.
We have no cell phone coverage whatsoever here. It's rather remarkable. But before we get into this episode, which for everyone out there, we're going to do a little bit of a PerfBytes Performance Year in Review 2013. This is the first full calendar year that James and I have been doing PerfBytes, and you've been listening to the show. So we're going to, we have a few awards to give out, and we have a few trips down memory lanes to some of our favorite News of the Damned segments. I'll share what the number one episode is so far, which might surprise you. I didn't even put it in the notes because I even want to surprise you, James. You might not even know.
That will be a surprise.
Yes, that's right. But before we do that, we usually talk a little bit about the news. Do we have any industry news at all? There's usually nothing going on right now.
Right now is really a dead time, and I think that owes to the fact that during this time of year, people are really crunched and paying attention to their operations. Performance testing practices kind of take a back seat. In fact, I know a lot of them that are down all this week.
Oh, yeah.
Between Christmas and New Year's, either for equipment refit or just go home, relax. We've abused you for a month. We'll see you on January 5th.
Yeah, same things goes with a few vendors. I have a couple webinars. I have a webinar with XBO, Phil Liu from XBO Soft, so I'm going to do a webinar on the 7th. With Phil, which would be awesome. But other than that, it's been very, very quiet in that news. So let's, James, last year, I think it was almost one of our first or second episodes, we threw out there sort of the person of the year. Like you had actually introduced in 2012 when we started PerfBytes this idea that we should have an award every year for the person who causes the most mayhem.
Who has the most impact on performance. over the course of the year.
Yes. And so at the time, last year in 2012,
it was Princess Kate.
At the time, Duchess of Cambridge.
Yes.
Kate Middleton, right?
Yes,
exactly.
that's true.
And now she's not only fully married as the Duchess, the princess, right?
Yeah.
Yes. But she has a child.
That is true.
So Prince George has joined us, and in his
which by the way, for those of us in the former colonies, George, maybe not the best name.
Not a great name, but it's not the case.
We're a little sensitive about that still. It's been a couple hundred years, but you're really good friends in the UK.
Yeah.
We'll get over it.
Yeah, we'll call him Georgie, or we'll make names of him. He's young. That's fine. But just so some of you know that there isn't just complete insanity behind the idea of this. As you point out, James, when we choose a winner for the Person of the Year, in which case we're looking at performance outages actually being created by people.
Yes.
Computers don't usually crash themselves.
And we're not looking at malicious activities.
No.
We're not looking at distributed denial of service attacks. We're not looking at hacking events. We're looking at something that is directly related to a human failure.
And it could be a human failure with something very technical, like a configuration or a bug, performance-wise, or it could be just systemic or project management failure, in which case understanding a couple of the different criteria would be...
Or we just didn't plan for it.
Or we just didn't do anything. We didn't do any performance. Still, I think more than 50% of the people out there just cross their fingers. They don't actually do any testing. So let's review a little bit of the criteria that you and I usually talk about when we do the News of the Damned and you choose these things. One is just the quality of the outage, right? Is it just stupidity or negligence? One of the two, or both?
I look for a bronze quality.
A bronze quality.
Yeah. Something really shiny and attracts lots of attention. Yeah.
Yes, something interesting. So there's just the quality of the outage, and that's like somebody that just could have done something with a static page and put it on a CDN, something really cheap and easy, and they just didn't do it. So that's just negligence. Another criteria that we choose could just be you can't create an outage of yourself. So, like we had Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, he crashed his own website.
Twice.
I think it was twice. So, he is ineligible for a Person of the Year status.
Right.
Even though he has crashed many guest websites of people that have been on his show.
Right, like Steve Harvey crashing the lingerie place in Philadelphia. That was a good one.
So, and we do have this as a common theme of people appearing on news or talk radio or whatever.
Dr. Oz with the peanut butter.
Shark Tank,
yes. Yeah. So there's one. So that kind of leads us down this path of looking at, somebody who's notorious. So like Princess Kate, how many times has she shown up on the News of the Damned? Probably more than any other person.
How many pairs of shoes does she have?
If she wore them out more, she'd probably crash more sites. She'd show up more.
Yeah.
So another criteria would be how many times you actually appear on the News of the Damned. So just by sheer volume of how many events. The other thing that we might look at, if you remember Scott Barber's famous FibLots, right?
Yeah.
All of why do we do performance testing? Well, F of FibLots is financial, if there's a financial reason. So
what is the total financial impact of the outage?
Exactly. What's the actual cost to the company or the organization or an individual? Let's say you're going to win a lottery and then it's $600 million.
Interesting number, but okay. We'll go with that.
And then I think, James, as we reviewed everything and talked over these last few episodes on the side, you suggested that it really, if we're thinking of it in, I don't want to say maybe the most evil way the News of the Damned could be embodied, is if you could embrace the number of souls impacted by evil.
That would be why Vincent Price laughs maniacally at the end of the...
And no matter how much you and I try to mimic that voice, we never get it.
Yeah.
It's like he's classic, right? All right, so number of innocent people brutally impacted by the outage, which brings us, James, based on the criteria aforementioned, who are we nominating as our 2013 PerfBytes News of the Damned Person of the Year?
Someone who everybody knows at this point, Henry Chow.
Henry Chow.
Woo!
Okay, Mark. With all seriousness,
I'm so happy for Henry. Henry's awesome. Good for him.
You're probably wondering, who the heck is Henry Chow?
Well, it's Henry Chow.
Yeah. Henry Chow is the man behind healthcare.gov. Dun, dun, dun.
No.
Yes.
Healthcare.gov. He's been on testimony quite a bit.
He has
tail between his legs.
He's the deputy CIO, director of Senators for Medicaid and Medicare Services.
Which I don't understand why they don't. It's the CMS. Why doesn't it have two M's?
I don't know.
It should be CMMS.
Maybe that acronym was already taken.
Well, maybe it started as Medicare and then they added Medicaid.
It could be. Either way, it really comes down to a failure in project management in the case of healthcare.gov.
And his role was kind of the executive PM.
Everything stopped at him before it went up to Kathleen Sebelius and
the rest of the administration.
Before it went up to the rest of the administration.
And Congress.
Yes. So he failed in his duty to corral the contractors, to corral the requirements folks, to ensure that it was tested effectively. And you know what? He could have pulled the brakes on the whole entire project and said, you know what, the risk is too high. We're not ready to go on October 1st.
Yeah.
Because that was a date, kind of set by the administration. They could have moved it a month. They could have moved it 2 months. But instead, they went. And, the rest is history. We're looking from a financial impact at well over $1 billion expended at this point.
The latest estimates I actually looked from Sebelius was $677 million. That's early in December.
Yep.
But as you point out, James, we know the old classic cost of a defect.
It's
right?
It's 10 times the cost in production to fix it as it is the day before. And if they had a 5% range of errors, which we know that at least 5% of the site wasn't functional, wasn't complete, wasn't tested.
Didn't scale.
That's what was $30 million to fix on September 29th became $300 million on October 2nd.
Even if it's not that perfect, even if we just said it's 5x, not 10x, the traditional old Gartner 10x number, even at 5x, we're in the billions in terms of the cost of this outage. So, number of people impacted? Financially, well, let's just go over this number of people impacted. If you think of how many millions of people may visit the site in a day.
Mark, we had so many people impacted for such a long period of time. We had to put in an embargo on mentioning this on the show.
We bleeped it out the last few episodes.
So, the scale of this so dwarfs anything else that we've ever encountered.
Yes.
Mark, I don't know about you, but even in private industry, just the absolute term for these events has just dwarfed anything I've seen.
I've never seen a public or private institution get away with failure
at this scale.
So, we may not be hearing it through the holidays, but I'm sure some heads have rolled and they're not allowed to talk about it. And I've seen very little, whistleblower people. Where are the whistleblowers? How come Snowden wasn't on this?
That's because they've outlawed whistles in Washington, D.C.
No whistles?
Yeah, they've outlawed whistles in Washington, D.C. Because it's confusing to pedestrians and people in traffic. They're not sure if it's someone directing traffic.
But this work was done in Canada, wasn't it? By CMS?
Well, we have to assume it's done inside the United States because it's federal government work. It should have been done in the United States. We can't assume that it's gone overseas because that poses all sorts of problems of U.S. tax dollars being sent to non-U.S. citizens to do U.S. citizen-related work. It's. If I had hair, I would no longer have it.
That's right. I did pull a couple of quotes, not to beat a dead horse. We'll do that later in the show. But Elise Hu at NPR, who's actually one of their technology reporters, did some really good
investigative reporting here, and specifically had some of these great quotes she pulled out from all the different stories. One, she stated, 3 months before the launch, only 10 developers from contractor CGI Federal were working on a crucial part of the site, the marketplace site that crashed the most.
Yeah.
And of those developers, only one of them was, quote unquote, at a high enough skill level.
So Mark, I see this other quote that you have from Grant as a compliment to that just simply says, seriously substandard staffing.
Seriously substandard staffing. We are going to be studying healthcare.gov in businesses in business school, and unfortunately, those guys won't walk down the hall, as usual, and tell the IT guys in the computer science department, you need to teach your computer science geeks how to not have this happen.
And even Henry Chow recognized this, the contractors, and a quote from him, I just need to feel more confident that they're not going to crash the plane at takeoff. Wow. And this gets back to why he's got our award for Person of the Year. So he knows that, and yet he still puts the plane on the runway with half a wing finished and says,
no tires,
no
fuel, never flew it before.
Go ahead, ramp up the engines.
So really, Henry, hats off to you, my friend, for impacting more human beings than any other person on the planet in 2013 with a horrible, damned IT website experience. The worst in history.
And in the words of the most interesting man in the world, I don't always build a website, but when I do, I have it managed by Henry Chow and built by CGI.
No, that would be antithetical to them.
Yeah, that's the point, Mark.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I didn't get that. All right, so of course, like in any good competition, James, you've probably covered 4 or 5 News of the Damned in every episode, and we've done like 30-some episodes, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking hundreds worth of News of the Damned of little stories, right?
And some of them stand out more than others.
Some of them stand out more than others. Now, I picked out a few that were kind of my favorites, and you can feel free to chime in. But I wanted to, in terms of impact, similar to Henry. You can't really touch Henry.
Yeah,
he's going to be probably enshrined forever for that. But I did put a couple runners-up in there, and I voted for one which was, back in February, the Pope Benedict resigned.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All the Catholic crazies, at least all of the living Catholics, were able to cache the website.
I think that's about 1 billion people.
About 1 billion people, so the number is definitely large.
Yeah.
But I wasn't actually counting the disembodied souls who were, for some reason, waiting around and also crashing the website.
Do they have the internet in purgatory?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be purgatory. It could just be, like Poltergeist, like Carol Ann is sort of in that.
In the TV.
Yeah, in the TV, hanging around place, right?
Okay.
Just not going into the light because they're like, well, I'm just waiting for Benedict to resign. Oh. And then also, if you've ever been working in computer systems and you can't really find the reason the system is screwed up and you call it like Gremlins.
That's Carol Ann.
But I don't know if Gremlins are Catholic.
No, and gremlins are only a problem if you feed them water after midnight.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So hats off also. Well, the Pope hat. Get it?
Yeah. Which evidently is actually a quite popular blog as well.
Yes, but hats off, particularly Pope Benedict, who had to take off the Pope hat. During his resignation.
It's time to pass the mitre.
Time to pass the mitre to the new guy, who's actually quite famous, and he's gaining popularity with some
Pope
of
Francis.
Pope Francis. We might see him crashing sites in the new year.
Hey, he got a Best Dressed from GQ this last week.
I'm just looking to make sure that we're still recording. Okay, that's great. All right, just double checking. So who's our next runner-up here?
Well, next up, also from the annals of government competence.
Government competence. This is a good one. I love this one.
The New Jersey Department of Motor Vehicles.
Yes, the Motor Vehicle Commission in New Jersey, you'll remember, this was also earlier in 2013. A fellow by the name, now he may not be directly responsible, but we'll give credit to William Quinn in New Jersey.
Well, because he has the best quote on this whole event.
He has the best quote. I love this quote. Are you ready?
Yeah.
There was no fire in the data center, but the alarm was triggered by a number of factors, including excessive heat. It's unclear at this time exactly what caused the alarm to go off.
Wow. Maybe it was an airflow issue, because those chips in the computers, they get kind of warm.
CPU, disk memory, network, power, and
fire.
Cooling. No, not cooling. No, not fire. No. Heat.
Or as Mr. Cosby says, fire.
Fire. Right, that's right. Yeah. Exactly. No, if you remember this story correctly, they had... apparently not to a fire, but they had some alarm go off that should have triggered a failover of all the systems to another data center.
But they had never tested it.
And they'd never implemented the load distance clustering. They had no failover.
Exactly. So we have all these people who love to go to the DMV.
Don't you love to stand in line and wait in the DMV, even if you're waiting on the website? I love going there.
I'm a people watcher, Mark. And some days... when I need a break, I just go to the DMV, I take a number, and I just sit and watch.
Yeah, just for fun. And then when they call your number, you're go ahead, I'm fine.
And I can tell you, I've never seen a really delighted person there.
Yes. So we almost want to count the people impacted as maybe 2 for 1 or 3 for 1, because of the people impacted by this outage, nobody wanted to be frickin' waiting for the DMV site anyway. So that's pretty awful.
Mark, I need you to hold on for just a second. It's time for a word from our sponsors.
Hosting for PerfBytes.com has been provided by NewCo, New Centers of Excellence in Performance Engineering, PowerTest Professional Services, The Script Farm, LoadRunner by the Hour, Videratech, Cloud Architect, and No Load Test. For more information, go to www.newcoe.com or call 703-856-8187.
Mark, I know you've collected some special mentions, and I'm kind of scared at least of one of them.
Yeah, so there were a couple that really stood out for me without even, when I think back to first one was just, what's the weirdest one?
Yeah. Like
the thing that you would, you told me this on a News of the Day, and I was like, how in the, what? And that is one called Rinkwatch. Now, Rinkwatch was this site.
That's where they track. So in northern climates, particularly in Canada, people build backyard hockey rinks because it's cold and they can.
And they freeze.
And there's this site called Rinkwatch,
yes,
which tracks the melt date for your backyard rinks.
Right.
Really, it's a secondary data set for climate changes, getting colder, getting warmer, whatever.
Right.
But, basically it's just gathering data. And Rinkwatch melted down.
So I think that's why I remember that one, is just because for many of the News of the Damn things, you find a way to put in some little punny, quippy little thing in that was just apropos. But how weird is that? How popular is it got to be that people are going to crash Rinkwatch.com? And I believe Rinkwatch.com is still alive. It's still going well.
It is. We should watch it this spring.
I know. It is freezing outside.
Just to see if it melts down again.
Yeah, my friends in Minnesota are going to be in the negative 20s, I think. And of course, James, no memory of News of the Damned would be complete without a special mention of the most hilarious one that we can remember, and that is... You can't even say it, can you? Prancercize.
And just to let our audience members know, we did attempt to contact Joanna Rarbach of Prancercizing before this show started. And we were impacted by the oil burning cell towers,
yes,
in the Williamsburg area, and we're not able to make contact.
Yes, that's fine.
With Miss Rarbach, and I'm actually kind of glad, because I think I would have lost it completely.
Yes.
On the call if someone had actually picked up.
So Joanna is, as an honorable mention, she's a slash dot effect, right? So you got Huffington Post or someone posted the now virally famous Prancercizing video. And in particular, my memory of this from 2013 was your comment about having the website was so crashed that they'd have to put the old girl down. And I edit the show, and I had, in the actual one that you all have heard on the episode that I published, it's a pretty short amount of laughter. In reality, the raw recording,
we went on for like 5
or 10 minutes worth of nothing but laughing. Could not stop laughing. So there's your top 5 honorable mentions, special mentions, and of course, number 1, Henry Chow.
Yes.
From the CMS.
Mr. Chow, once we get your address, expect a PerfBytes mug.
If we ever could manage to get his address. I bet there's no way to get to the guy.
We know his division.
Yeah, I hope he has security.
I'm sure we can find what building he's in.
It's a legitimate gift. Seriously, there's nothing. No, it's not. There's no anthrax or anything in it. Or,
no.
Nothing crazy like that. Just normal. Just remember us next time you do a performance project.
So Mark, you said that you were tracking what our most popular episode is.
Yeah. So. As you know, with PerfBytes, we track, we cover all sorts of subjects from all sorts of different angles on the subject area of being a performance tester. What's it like to be in an organization? Down to very technical things, covering database performance, storage performance, and the number 1 episode in 2013 to date is performance analysis.
I know agile performance testing was ahead for a while.
It was ahead for a very, very long time.
And I think probably what tipped the performance analysis over was all the testing going on right before Thanksgiving and people trying to figure out what was wrong.
How the hell do I make sense of this graph? What's a correlation? My manager wants a report. Oh my God.
That's my hypothesis, and I'm sticking to it. I can't test it, but that's where I'm headed on that.
Yes, it is. It ranked with all of the other episodes thus far in our PerfBytes Spreaker site, performance analysis, which leads me to believe that that episode was just jam-packed with information, so people have to listen to it multiple times.
Could be. It could be on Scott Moore's playlist.
It could be on Scott Moore's playlist.
Yeah.
Or Ron Foster's automated site that...
Yeah.
No, that was Blog Talk Radio, sorry.
Yeah.
So, yes, performance analysis, it could also mean that it's just a really popular area that nobody really covers in teaching and learning, and we happen to share some really great tips about how to do performance analysis, which I'd like to think there's good value in that. So,
or we had some great news of the damn stories in that episode.
We can go back and take a look if you'd like.
It would be ironic if Prancercizing was in there.
It is.
Yes. This was the episode with Prancercizing. This was the episode with
Prancercizing. So there's the real coincidence, and that's why that's the most popular one, because people just want to tune in and hear us
melt down.
Exactly. All right, James. So that's those are the awards we have for 2013.
Yeah.
Any comments in looking back so far?
It's really rather embarrassing for our profession, Mark, that every 2 weeks. And by the way, I just cover the ones that are bright and shiny, the bronze ones and above.
Yeah.
Every day, I receive at least 2 or 3 in my inbox.
Yeah.
Regarding website meltdowns around the world, and we need to be delivering better value downstream to the projects that we're working on to avoid these things in the future.
Yeah.
That's my editorial. Edward R. Murrow editorial.
Yes.
For the year.
Good night and good luck.
Yeah.
I'll say I agree with that, and that PerfBytes is just the beginning of learning how to avoid an outage. Right? If you listen to every episode, and we know some people, Mike Lyles, who's becoming a performance leader in his organization. He's going to be a director. I've got another director of performance that I'm working with. They're all like, I'm going to go back and listen to every one of your episodes, and I'm going to try to get as much as I can. And I might listen to them on 1.5 speed, so I think we sounded like chipmunks.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
I wonder if we could do like a Christmas Chipmunks PerfBytes then.
And of course, I think 115 of those listens on performance analysis was Mike re-listening to Prancercizing.
Oh, okay.
Hello, PerfBytes listeners. It's your old friend Satan here. It is with great esteem that I'm proud to introduce this week's edition of The News of the Damned.
Can you dig it?
All right, James, we have an actual new news of the damn. The last week of the year in 2013, people are still crashing websites.
And it is a fairly international news of the damn this
beautiful.
week. We're going to start in India. Particularly the state of Andhra Pradesh and the city of Rajamundi. We had a whole bunch of people rushing a Federal Election Commission's website to get registered to vote.
Which is good.
Which is good. So you, in particular, it was a bunch of young people from internet cafes rushing the site to get registered to vote.
Any evidence that they were being prevented, like this wouldn't be DDoS or anything, or just the site wasn't ready?
I guess the site just wasn't ready. You know how young people are. You know, they wait till the last minute. And they probably had their parents prodding them to do this.
And there's a deadline involved.
There's a hard deadline. So you had a whole bunch of people queued up at the last moment to go and register to vote so they could vote in the forthcoming federal elections.
And that one, you'd have to do a dynamic data submission. I would say they failed to plan ahead on capacity.
Yeah, and
worst case scenario, 3x test. You know, can you handle it? Even if you added machines just for that last week. Just go double the machines for a week so you can handle it.
And by the way, in the United States, 1 year from an election, local election commissions test your websites now.
You remember we gave you guys a heads up on healthcare.gov? Yeah, no one did about that.
Yeah,
didn't do anything about it.
We're already working on the 2020 problem.
2020, that's right. Get ready, 2020.
Yep.
Sliding window on your Y2K 2-date field.
So listen to us. You know, we're ahead of the curve here.
Yes.
Next up, Sydney, Australia.
Aye, mate.
Exactly. And actually, we have a couple of events from Australia this week.
Yes.
We'll begin in the academic arena. The ATAR test. The results from the ATAR test. ATAR is the Australian Tertiary Admissions Rank. So think of it kind of like the SAT test results and your rank in that.
ACT.
In the United States, ACT.
Yep.
We've seen similar academic test results for getting into college in the UK and India, where students rush the website because they want to know what their rank is, see if they get in the college of their choice.
Yep. And again, they knew the date was coming.
Entirely predictable. They controlled when the information was going to be released.
Yeah.
And they had prior art saying this type of event caused compression in other countries in the past.
Wow. All right. So now this is not the first thing in academic test scores.
Oh, no.
We've seen it all over the world.
We've had it in India in the past. We've had it in the United Kingdom in the past. We've had it in the United States in the past.
Yeah.
And now Australia. Hold on.
Yeah.
India, UK, United States. Maybe it's an English-speaking thing.
It could be. If people speak English, they're more anxious.
Yeah,
but there's probably some correlated weird thing, and they're all left-handed.
English-speaking students or something like that.
Yes.
So if you have English-speaking students, test your website.
So if there's anyone out there listening from any of the sort of academic test-taking, Pearson, we know some folks from Pearson, give us a call. We're curious, as to why some of these. Becky from Ventura, actually, I think did some work.
We should have Becky.
We can ask Becky. She can talk about it. JVM tuning person.
Yeah, if she could talk about it in this case.
But she might not be able to.
Also from Australia, from Boxing Day. The Myer website melted down.
Now, what is Myer? Is it a shopping e-commerce site?
It's a shopping. It's at least that's what I can gather. It's one of these. Go online, buy, as well as go in person to the store and buy stuff.
Right.
Maybe it's their equivalent of like a Target or something.
But what's Myer went down? There was some rush on the site. There were sales.
I guess so. Boxing Day sales. They have Christmas.
But it's reverse though, right? I mean, Boxing Day gifts would be like.
Well, they have.
You buy something for your servant, isn't it? Class exchange.
Well, you see, you have Christmas Down Under as well. So you have all these people that have received
Santa flies counterclockwise.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So you have all these people that receive gift cards and cash. And
it's redeemable on Boxing Day.
Yeah, which is why here in the United States the day after Christmas is the second largest shopping day in person, because you have all these gift cards,
exchanges and returns.
Exactly. So you have all of that activity going on, and already recovering from the ATAR fiasco. The country of Australia was then hit by a Meyer website problem.
Yes.
Mr. Moncrief, paging Mr. Stewart Moncrief.
And Mr. Koopmans.
Yeah.
Come on, go. And Trevor Warren.
Yes.
Trevor, man. We got to go down there.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah, that's a long flight.
It is a long flight. You have to do an extended stay. Maybe we'll teach some workshops. Hey, you guys give us a call. Put together something, man. We'll come down and spend a month.
So, Mark, have you ever been to a NASCAR event?
I've never been to a NASCAR event.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I think I have, but it wasn't NASCAR. It was just like the local neighborhood stock car racing.
Oh, okay. So kind of the feeder organization.
Yeah. There's one in Monroe, Washington.
Okay.
Actually, just north of Seattle there.
Well, racing is really about a series of crashes punctuated by long periods where cars go in a circle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in this case, NASCAR driver Casey Kane was able to crash a website. So you've moved from the track.
Do they have roll bars in the website? Was he safe?
There are no roll bars on the website.
No roll bars in the website.
Yeah. So in this case, Casey Kane was actually backfilling for a driver who had passed away recently by the name of Jason Leffler. And Jason was known as kind of Left Turn Leffler, kind of a play on his last name. And Casey was wearing a hat with this moniker on it, Left Turn.
Yes.
And there's a foundation, the Charles Dean Trust, that was set up to collect revenue from hat sales.
In his name.
Right. Well, guess what?
Website crash.
Yeah, website crash.
Yeah. Hat crash. NASCAR hat crash.
Yeah. He didn't take out any other drivers, however. And there wasn't a fight at the end of the event.
There should have been a fight. I wanted to see flames. I've never seen a website crash go up in flames, but maybe in New Jersey? They're just not telling the whole story.
Now, Mark, I have a story involving a disc array catching on fire, but we'll save that for another time.
I did melt a Sun Galaxy box once. That was fun.
Yeah.
Green ooze.
And then finally, Mark, Target.
Yeah, our good friends Target. They get hacked. Ron Foster posted some stuff. They're all over the place on this.
Yeah, so for our listeners around the world, Target is a retail store inside the United States, also has an online presence. And just after Thanksgiving, and evidently their credit card reader machines at the registers had been hacked, and some 40 million credit cards were compromised for customers.
And they had some missteps in sort of talking about the breach, but finally they had to inform their customers publicly and broadly publicly, hey everyone, someone stole your card number and your PIN.
And I know this seems like we're violating our rule about illegal activity in this case, but it's not the core Target website that was impacted by this. Mark, my understanding, it was support websites, it was the customer call center operations software.
Yeah, John Curtis, our good friend John Curtis actually sent this in and just said it's sort of the aftermath of people wanting to get information to know whether their account had been hacked.
Yeah.
And actually the spokesperson from Target said, here's the phone number to call. Our operators are standing by. And
famous last
words. Took out the call center. I mean, people don't understand the VoIP call center systems. Those are just computers too. You can load test.
Well,
crash the call center.
Healthcare.gov did the same thing. Can't get on the website. Call the call center. They did the same thing.
Yeah. So it's crazy. And then the other thing is when people couldn't actually get to the call center because the call center was down, then they go to the customer support portion of the Target.com website,
which
I think
crashed.
and they had the right thing. They had that part load balanced. But again, if you're running a huge website like Target.com or any big website, your e-commerce portion of the site is going to have lots of muscle behind it, and your load balancing algorithms are going to be set to handle that load. And you think the About Us page or these little other sites that never show up in your analytics, You're never going to really load balance those on anything but a couple of servers. Contact us. Yeah, maybe we get a couple hundred emails a day. One server can take care of that. But they got hammered. Took it out.
So, that's it, folks, for News of the Dam for this week.
News of the Dam, and the last News of the Dam for all of 2013.
And we should point out that we have no stories this week from the United Kingdom involving concerts.
Or mobile concert ticket sales.
Yes, congratulations to the UK. Your developers can sleep well tonight.
But maybe Richard Bishop is solving all the problems over there.
Way to go, Richard.
Way to go, Richard. Right on. And Mahesh. Yeah. We gotta meet more people.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of that, we'll talk about what's coming in 2014, because, it's been a year plus, 33. This is be our 33rd episode, right?
Yes.
Wow. We've had a lot of feedback from different people that have tuned into the podcast, and those of you that are listening right now. One of the major things that people ask me about is, why is it so long? I have to listen to the show like multiple times. I can't, like in one break or one commuting and my drive, or if I go to work out, I work out. And we'll have episodes, some of them go like an hour and 15 minutes long, because there's just so much laughter at Prancercize. You can't contain it.
Well, Mark, we're going to kind of put a little boundary around you.
Yeah, we are.
In 2014.
Shut my yap.
So we're moving to a 30-minute podcast format,
yes.
Based upon requests, demands, and some physical threats from our listeners.
Actually, it comes from people who subscribe, say, via iTunes or on their mobile device, and the file size is over 50 meg.
Wow.
For a 1 hour show.
Wow.
And so you can't download it on your 3G or 4G.
Oh.
So the truth is, and it's going to cost you more, even though the file size is going to be 25 meg, you're going to have to be wary of, it's still a fairly good sized podcast. So just be aware. PerfBytes is going to start downloading all the time instead of giving you a little pop-up error that says, dude, you can't download this over.
And you know what? We're also going to be breaking out News of the Damned.
That's the biggest news, I think. That it's an opportunity for people. Some of you, I know, just turn on the podcast, and you fast forward over all of the really, really valuable learning about performance just to hear Vincent Price laugh and hear James cover the hot topics in the News of the Damned. So we're actually going to do that, and we might do it more frequently than every 2 weeks if certain events come up. But that'll be a much shorter podcast. So we're going to have actually 2 different feeds for your listening pleasure in the new year, which will make it a little bit more frequent, maybe, the postings, and also allow you to just download smaller chunks and listen to everything in smaller chunks. We'll still preserve the depth of content and maybe even split some of these shows out into smaller chunks, covering topics with deeper details and technical information. So that's one major change coming in 2014.
Also in 2014, we have conferences we're going to be attending.
Yes.
And not just in the U.S.
No, we're going to be tootling around all over the place. So STPCon is still the mainstay. So go to stpcon.com.
And we'll be both at the spring and the fall conference.
Yep.
There's a high probability that one or both of us will be at HP Discover. And Lost Wages in June.
In June. I have a bunch of other stuff going on. I'll be in the UK at Test Bash.
Yeah.
So Rosie Sherry, going to go hang out with Keith Klain, Scott Barber. Test Bash 3, that's happening in Brighton, that's in March. I'll be in Seattle in April. I'll be in Minnesota in April. I'll be in Research Triangle. I think that's in March. And then, of course, James, 4th of July, yourself, Chewbacca, and
we have R2 who's going to join us.
And R2D2 will be there.
So
another PerfBytes barbecue 4th of July in Monroe, North Carolina.
Barbecue prepared by yours truly. We'll do a live show. If you're interested in attending, start RSVP now and making your plans.
Yes, and make your meat choices known. Right,
pork, we are in the
beef,
North Carolina area,
sausage.
So we should state quite openly we are in the North Carolina pork and vinegar zone.
Yes.
So if you are a mustard aficionado, if you like a more ketchup-based, if you deal with any of the heretical animals such as cow, goat, mutton, or chicken, we could have some issues. So.
Yeah, I get that. Another thing we've announced before is James and I have talked a lot and responding to folks who want more information than just on the podcast. Now, typically, you would call up myself or James or one of the contributors you hear on our show, and most of us do professional services consulting, and we'll get on a call or we'll come out and deliver services, and we'll help you out directly going deeper into these topics. But that said, we'd kind of like to get into doing the book sprints and doing some online publishing of books. So maybe, James, you could say a little bit about how we're going to progress in the new year.
So last summer, Mark and I laid out a plan for book sprints, which is to take these topics as they spin off of the shows, to work with leaders in the industry on an essay model to take a topic and have 10 authors attack the topic over a very short window.
Yeah, so from different angles. So, Mark, we might be looking at the topic of
performance analysis,
performance on Macintosh, or we'll give a platform as an example, and we'll give it to 10 different people, and one person might write an essay of
how to monitor a Mac,
how to put a real operating system on a Mac. One person might write it on how to monitor a Mac. One person might modify or write an article on how to disable the entire GUI subsystem so you can turn the Mac into a server with low overhead.
Sure.
So, but that gives you the general idea. A very broad originating topic. 10 authors, 10 different ways to attack it. And really this is part of our educational series so that as someone comes on board, hey, I have to do database performance testing, let me go grab a book on database performance testing. I have views from 10 different authors in the industry, all established experts. There's going to be a kernel which flows through all 10 essays potentially, but there's always going to be some unique take that's going to provide some sort of insight that's going to make you a better tester.
So mostly it'll be edited and put together by James and myself, bringing these different folks in. Of course, if any of you are interested in contributing and hopping on any of the different articles, well, actually, one article could be a perf rant, sort of an editorial on the subject.
It could be a case study. It could be bottleneck pattern identification. So we have a number of different article types, and we're very flexible. We want it to be educational, entertaining, perhaps even a bit pithy.
Yes, pithy. I agree. The last thing, of course, we added Flood.io in 2013, the sponsor. And, of course, we're looking at and incorporating a few new sponsors in the new year, so keep an eye out for them. And, of course, we encourage everyone that's listening to get out there and pay attention to some of these organizations, these vendors, because they're crazy enough to actually spend real money on what James and I do on this podcast every few weeks, which is completely insane. But, no, seriously, they're actually supporting the learning opportunities and the attention that we can do to help people learn about performance.
They want to help you to receive high value from our podcast.
Which is hard to do because we mostly just laugh about Prancercizing. Yeah, that's right. But there are great products. You guys heard the last couple episodes on views or tips and tricks. You hear Tim is absolutely a performance expert engineer in his own right, as well as Alon from BlazeMeter. We've had Dan Bartow give a rant from Sosta. So some of these great vendors and individual consultants are going to be jumping on in the new year, and we're really excited about that. So our final, we've done it, getting a little bit better traction. I wanted to say in 2014, we just changed the website today. So now there is an Ask tab at PerfBytes. So www.perfbytes.com/ask.
And look for the RSS feed icon on the website as well. I know some people have been asking for it.
You can get a feed, and now you can actually ask things for the PerfBytes inbox. So for this episode, we have Ask PerfBytes is coming from, actually I grabbed it off of LinkedIn. This one came from LinkedIn because we just got the website set up. This comes from Neil from New Zealand, who writes, if the system under test is in the cloud and you have have you faced resistance from the hosting service to provide resource stats? And if so, what did you do?
Well, Mark, the answer is yes. I have faced resistance. And if you own outright the platform as a service, that is, you own the raw OS where your application is hosted, you can actually get some stats from that core operating system. The challenge is you don't know the level of integrity of those core stats coming from the hypervisor, because the hypervisor says
if it's virtualized, exactly.
If it's virtualized, because cloud implies virtualization.
Yeah.
So you're sharing that box with multiple other virtual machines, and the hypervisor might say you're getting negative 23% CPU one time and 1,000% some other time. I've actually seen those values.
Yes.
And it doesn't make sense. And it does become a challenge in actually getting core information. And you might want to pick a hosting provider that has a combination of both hard hosting and physical devices, as well as virtualized hosting for items which you consider core critical. Rackspace is a really good example. They have Rackspace Cloud, plus they have their traditional Rackspace hosted servers in that case. Yeah. So if you're concerned about your database during testing, put your database on a physical machine and put the rest of them inside of the cloud.
Yeah.
As an example. Now, what the cloud does bring as a real strong advantage is that if you have your load generators in the same hosting facility as the rest of your application under test, you're not charged for bytes into and out of the cloud.
Yeah.
So you can generate an awful lot of load, say, inside of the Amazon ACS infrastructure.
Yeah, without ever leaving the data center.
Without ever leaving the data center. Now, granted, there's probably 10,000 miles of wire in the data center.
Yeah.
But you won't get charged for bytes in and bytes out of the cloud, which can add quite a bit of cost to an individual performance test if you have a large number of users running. So that's also very, very...
Yeah. I think resistance-wise, my advice to Neil is you're usually hitting either legal, contractual resistance, or in some cases, I know a lot of technical engineering types that any legalese just scares them, right? If it doesn't look like code, they don't know how to read it. But only lawyers know how to read legalese code. Yeah. And usually, if you're prevented from getting to monitoring metrics and hosting metrics, read the fine print, because it might be that legally you're actually guaranteed some statistics about the uptime and that kind of stuff. So I would go back and look at the fine print of the contract and see if that works in your favor. And if your boss or your ops guys are just, reluctant to give you access to those, well, that doesn't matter whether there's a cloud or not. Ops guys always want to keep their metrics close to the chest, right?
Yeah.
So that is a challenge no matter what. But I'll say there's two things that help get you over this resistance politically. One is to basically make it a criteria for the success of the test by putting it in the requirements for the test. So you tell your manager, okay, and at what CPU level will we determine the test of failure? 90%, 95%? And somebody would say, well, we don't know. But they usually don't specify a success criteria around a physical resource. But you could say, I'm running on a hypervisor and I don't want to see more than 60% CPU. Your ops guys might even say, I monitor CPU and we don't like going over 60%. So if the hosting provider is pushing back on you, try to renegotiate that contract and say, you know what, this is a criteria for us to even keep with you as a vendor, and put it on the table and say, if you don't give us access to these stats, then you're done. If you look at Amazon, Amazon has very minimal monitoring, but they have enough monitoring. Again, it's all virtualized, but something's better than nothing. So if you can point to it as a CPU bottleneck, then you go to it. The other thing I'll say to get over that resistance is, if you don't let it be a blocker to providing some kind of value. Even if you don't have those testing, monitoring, hosting metrics, if something is running at, response time is really the primary thing you're going to look at, or throughput. Who cares what the website, who cares what the CPU is if the website is rendering in 18 seconds?
Absolutely.
It's like, it doesn't matter what bottleneck it is. That's the second job.
Or if your database is engaging in table scans for every query.
Yeah. So you might have access to the database DMV, dynamic management views and stuff. Yeah. Even if you can't see the CPU, actually the the database engine itself is a virtual machine, if you think about it.
It is a guest operating system.
So
Yes,
you
it
can
is.
see disk I/O weight, CPU consumption on a query session level.
Yeah.
So there's some things you can do to get around that, but don't let it stop you from reporting, I'll say, opportunities for performance improvement based on what you can measure, based on what you can test. But don't give up the fight. And if they keep pushing back on you, just have them call us. Just have them call 775-623-7373, and we'll answer their questions. That's actually the PerfBytes phone number. Did you know that?
I did know that. And keep in mind, since you are in New Zealand, Neil,
Yes.
be respectful of the difference in hours.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, would you like to take us out?
Well, PerfBytes listeners, once again, we've come to a close of another skin-tingling episode of PerfBytes. And as always, we appreciate the time you've taken from your work schedule to listen to the show today. And as always, I want to thank my mother for tuning in. Mom, I know you spent a lot of hours listening this year, and you've had a lot of feedback for me. I really appreciate it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mom. We really appreciate it, as well as everyone else. And I, of course, will give my stereotypically redundant, intimate thank yous to the sexy Irish voice of PerfBytes for everything she's done in 2013 for us, including joining us on the 4th of July show where Chewbacca got really drunk.
Yes.
That was pretty good.
And Mark, we, of course, want to give a special thanks to our great sponsor, Flood.io, for joining us on this episode.
They didn't join us on this episode.
Well, for sponsoring this episode.
For sponsoring the episode.
Yes.
Which is what sponsors do.
Yeah. We want to thank Flood.io for helping to sponsor this craziness.
Yes.
And helping to bring this podcast to our listeners.
To our listeners. Now, we didn't update this stuff here.
Today's episode of PerfBytes is powered by the voices of millions of screaming users, all complaining about a longer than 2.5 second response time.
Did you memorize that?
Yes.
That was good. That was really excellent. And of course, just to remind all of the listeners of PerfBytes that every segment and all of the content of the PerfBytes episode is copyrighted and protected in the same way that a hotel door room lock with the little magnetic slider thing, it never works. Sometimes the battery goes dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's really safe because even I can't get in the hotel room
Mark,
when the card doesn't work.
We are in Colonial Williamsburg, so we could say that it's protected by millions of gun-toting American colonists.
Actually, reenactment colonists, right?
Oh, okay.
Because, there's a difference between acting and reenacting, right?
Good point.
It's a whole different level of commitment. So, yeah, that's fine. What are the things in the center with what are the locks? What do they call that? Where they put you in the middle of the square?
That's when you're pilloried.
Yeah, pilloried, but what do they call those things? They're the locks?
The stocks.
Stocks. So, yes, since we're in Colonial Williamsburg, all of the content could also be protected by locking it up in the stocks in the center of town in historic Colonial Williamsburg.
And please do not throw rotten food.
No rotten food at this episode, please. Also to remind everybody that of our continuing support for the software test professionals community of software testers, and we wish to see you at the upcoming April STPCon in New Orleans, which would be really great. PerfBytes is also a longtime supporter of the Workshop on Performance and Reliability, the Performance Engineering Book of Knowledge, the Computer Measurement Group, and any other really cool group of people like Trevor Warren and the Practical Performance Analysts around the world doing really awesome performance work for the world.
It's been an amazing year. Thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to meeting more of you in person in the coming year.
Thank you guys for a great one, 2013, and Happy New Year and celebrate 2014 safely. We want to see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
PerfBytes would also like to send a great special thanks to our supporters and contributors in 2013, including Dan Bartow, James Bach, Scott Barber, Brad Johnson, Scott Moore, Ron Foster, Ophir Prusek, Alon Gramonsky, Daniela Stolork, Tim Koopmans, John Curtis, Anjali Munjal, Jeff Roth, Richard Bishop, Mahesh Jahal, Mike Lyles, Rich Hand, Stuart Moncrief, Trevor Warren, Rick Baucom, Pitar Puskarich, Chewbacca, Martha Carey, and PerfBytes legal counsel John T. Vance Esquire. And to every one of you PerfBytes listeners, please have a safe and happy new year. May your website stay up, may your load test run sweet, and may your correlative regression analysis be fruitful.